Here, let's go ahead and get started with the City Council meeting for the City of Evans on July 7th. I'm Brian Rudy, the Mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Spear. Here. Councilmember Johnson. Present. Councilmember Neal. Present. Councilmember Mortensen. Here. Councilmember Castle. Absent.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item is approval of the agenda. I do have one change to the agenda I'm going to make. I'm going to move item E, consideration of Planning Commission member appointments, up to the top. So item E will be first, and then we'll follow in order after that, unless there are any other changes to the agenda, City Clerk?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 6, consent agenda. Excuse me. Item A, approval of the June 16th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes. Item B, consideration of ordinance number 717-20, approving the Ziggy Coffee Shop minor replat, second reading. Item C, consideration of ordinance number 720-20, an ordinance amending Titles 3, 5, and 18 of the Evans Municipal Code to allow mobile food vending in the City of Evans, second reading.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item 7, new business. Item E, consideration of Planning Commission member appointments. And I will go ahead and take that. This evening we have two openings and an alternate opening on our Planning Commission. Our Planning Commission is vital to our city. It's a recommendation board to our City Council. And we held interviews this evening, and we did find 3 people that we think are going to be fantastic. We had 5 interviews, and all 5 knocked it out of the park. All 5 were perfect. But we only had 3 spots, and council did come to a consensus on the 3. I will turn it over to the city manager if he has anything to add to that.
I have nothing to add, okay. Mayor. This is a council appointment.
So as the City Council, we came to the decision we would like to appoint, and I hope I say this right, Mark Leclerc, Robert Phillips, and Kaylin Myers to our Planning Commission. This is a big deal for us. Our Planning Commission is going to help us move this city forward in many directions and in many ways. I want to thank you guys that are here. Actually, Kaylin, if you could come up, and Mr. Leclerc, if you can come up, maybe just keep 6 feet apart real quick so I could introduce you. We're looking forward very much as a council to working with you and hearing the recommendations that you and the Planning Commission come to help the future of the city, to help us grow, and to help us make our city brighter and better. So thank you guys. Mr. Phillips, by the way, could not come back this evening, but he will get his certificate here in a little while. Thank you guys for everything, for being a volunteer for this commission, and we're really looking forward to working with you guys. So thank you for being here. Anything you would like to say?
Just looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClure.
I look forward to serving.
Great, thank you. I'm going to hand you your certificates, but I'm going to try and keep the 6 feet of distance here. So, thank you so much. I would shake your hand, but I don't think we're supposed to do that. Mr. McClure, thank you so very much. Thank you guys for coming back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Any council have anything to add?
I just look forward to working with you and hearing your recommendations. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item A, consideration of resolution number 18-2020 to make factual findings determining annexation eligibility for annexation of certain real property owned by Mountain Tracks Intermodal LLC, and we will hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, good evening, members of the council. This item 7A is one of 3 items related to this potential annexation at 7347th Avenue. I will turn this over. This first step really relates to just determining eligibility per state statute. I'll turn it over to our Assistant City Attorney, Drew Lyman, for any further comment on this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. There are two parcels owned by Mountain Tracks Intermodal LLC that will be considered at tonight's hearing. One is a 221-acre parcel of property, and there is an ordinance to rezone that property I-3 with certain exceptions. And then there is a 3.84-acre property, a smaller property, and that is being considered for annexation and zoning. And prior to the ordinance to consider the annexation, there is an eligibility resolution to be considered, and it will consider 7 criteria and make findings of fact for eligibility for annexation. Those criteria are as follows. At least 1/6 of the property is contiguous within the city's boundary. The territory is or soon will be urban. No land within the property will be divided into separate parts. The property comprises fewer than 20 acres, alleviating the need for an impact report. No other municipality has commenced annexation proceedings. Annexation of the property will not cause detachment from a school district, and annexation will not extend the city's boundary by more than 3 miles. If the resolution of eligibility 18-2020 is adopted, establishing eligibility, at that point, then City Council should consider Ordinance 722-20, the ordinance to annex and then concurrently zone the property. And the petitioner is here this evening tonight for this public hearing, as well as Ann Bess Johnson to present additional facts for City Council.
Okay. I'm assuming the petitioner would like to talk during the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. This is just the resolution.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Questions of staff? Or comments?
So this is south of the river?
Yes. There's a legal description attached to the resolution.
I'm
There's
just
also
looking
a
at the map. Yeah, I'm looking at
attached
the
to
map.
ordinance.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councilmember Spear?
No, I just wanted to make
Thank
sure I knew the address was.
Yep. Any other questions or comments?
Have none at
I
this
have
time.
none.
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 18-2020 as proposed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 18-2020 as proposed. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, item B, public hearing. Consideration of ordinance number 722-20, annexing and zoning certain lands concurrently in connection with the Mountain Tracks Intermodal LLC petition for annexation first reading. I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For this part of the annexation consideration, I will turn it over to our Community Development Director, Ann Bess Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of City Council. This presentation is going to be an overview so you can see where the parcels fit together and what the intention is, and then the relevance to the current comprehensive plan and the zoning maps. So no action is being requested of you from this particular presentation, but Assistant City Attorney Lyman will come back up and then talk about the zoning and the annexation request. This is just an overview. So there are 2 locations. The one that's outlined in the red and yellow, that is at 22477 Weld County Road 33. We are calling that parcel the smidge because when it is considered in context with the other one, it is a small parcel. So the other parcel that's outlined in blue is currently in the city of Evans, and it's currently zoned I-2, and its property address is 7300 47th Avenue. So as you can see, the smidge is contiguous with the city of Evans already by more than half. So on this next slide, this illustrates our current comprehensive plan and the future land uses that are contemplated in that comprehensive plan. The property is outlined, the larger property that's already in the city is outlined in the larger blue, and then again, you can see the smaller parcel that's tucked in there, right in that panhandle. The gray area up towards the north is area that is for industrial development in the city, or projected to be the industrial development by the comprehensive plan. And then the area that's in this green is green industry by the comprehensive plan. So the two properties are again outlined in an approximate location. The very next slide then illustrates the current zoning that is in the city of Evans, and the gray area is industrial. This parcel here is already zoned industrial 2. This little parcel is in the county, and it is zoned agriculture right now in the county. The area that has a blue circle has a site plan on it that approved through the city of Evans for an industrial use. And this evening, the discussion really isn't on the use of the property, it's just the zone of the property and what could be contemplated on those uses. So there will be several items before you tonight. You just heard the annexation resolution of eligibility. The next one will be regarding 22744, well, County Road 33, or AKA the smidge. And that will be the determination of annexation and zoning through an ordinance. And then the next item will be the annexation agreement. And then the next, after that, then will be consideration of rezoning the larger parcel, which is located at 7300 47th Avenue. So this is just a general overview of all of the steps that we'll be taking together this evening and how they do fit together, regardless of your decision.
I might just ask Ms. Johnson for one moment to give a little more context. This consideration tonight is for annexation and zoning, and you said this in your presentation, not the actual use. So what would come next if these actions were to occur? What further city review and would be needed for any land use to actually take place?
Thank you for the questions, and I oftentimes forget that I live in that world every day, so thank you. There are site plans, minor development plans, special use permits, and subdivisions to all come back. A minor development plan and a site plan are administratively approved. The subdivision and a special use permit would need to come back through the public hearing process. There would also be a development agreement that could be tied to any one of those types of land use applications, and those would come back before this council for consideration and hearing as well. Thank you.
That concludes staff's remarks on this item, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes,
She
and
said
again-
the deputy city attorney had something to
Yes.
Oh, for this,
Yes,
okay.
yes, so this was just an overview, and now the city attorney is going to go back into determination of annexation and zoning for the ordinance. Thank you.
I covered this in my remarks on the resolution for the most part, but the ordinance will legally annex the property into the city now that the city council has determined that the property is eligible for annexation through the resolution. And then the ordinance will also zone the property. That's consistent with our code, which requires concurrent zoning and annexation because the property has never been zoned in the city of Evans, having not ever been a part of the city of Evans. And the ordinance also will approve the annexation agreement that has been executed by Mountain Tracks Intermodal and authorize the signature of the mayor.
Okay, thank you. I understand the applicant is here. Would the applicant like to come forward and present his or her position, please? Yeah, if you could come to the podium here and state your name and your address, please, for the record.
My name is Tamara Such. I'm affiliated with Mountain Tracks. Kevin? Name.
Kevin Hogg, GM at Mountain Tracks Intermodal.
Mountain Tracks is located at 22744 West County Road 33. That's the smidge. The larger property is at 7300 47th Street. Just to describe some background here quickly, and good evening, Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem. We appreciate the time tonight, and we want to make sure we're as efficient as possible. We are Mountain Tracks Intermodal. We are a locally owned and operated, privately held business that is focused on investing and developing in natural resources and infrastructure throughout northern Colorado. We have a very local focused. We also have many of our partners that are fourth, fifth generation here, including one of our partners, Hunter Hoshiko, that isn't able to be with us tonight. Our devotion is to the long-term growth and sustainability of the infrastructure and natural resources, as I've just mentioned. Part of this focus and what we saw in Mountain Tracks, which we acquired here earlier this year from ARB, Niobrara Connector, is the ability to provide a diversified industrial park here in the city of Evans. I will get into the brief history of the property beforehand, but our goal is to allow this to be a commercial and industrial epicenter for businesses that are looking to build a regional presence here in northern Colorado. Further outside of the congestion zones of Denver and Boulder, it offers a great opportunity, and we are afforded great rail access to the UP Class 1 line, as well as I-25, I-85 in that corridor. So what we wanted to do now is take this smidge, bring it into the larger subdivision, and have that all annexed within the city of Evans. So you'll see, as Ann pointed out before, that smidge there is associated with the main terminal. It's about 4 acres. The main terminal itself, that's already been annexed back in 2004, consists of about 221 acres. The corporate headquarters that was later acquired but never annexed remains part of Weld County, and it only consists of no more than 4 acres. On it is a commercial building that we use for our offices to manage and operate the main terminal of Mountain Tracks. Have one more. Well, the history of the park is very relevant in the sense of why we believe in the vision that we have of Mountain Tracks. October 2004, Great Western Ethanol was the owner of the property, annexed the 225 acres into the city of Evans to do a major ethanol plant build-out. That never came into fruition. July 2014, that undeveloped property was purchased by ARB Midstream, which became the Nikon Terminal. ARB Midstream is a larger pipeline company. They looked at the Nikon Terminal to serve as almost an ancillary to their core business, and they designated Nikon Terminal as a crude by rail terminal. Years later, that terminal still never came into fruition. What we saw in the Mountain Tracks Terminal, former Nikon Terminal, was the opportunity to build an industrial park. Previously, since 2004, it's been focused as an ethanol, energy-focused, crude by rail asset. What we see is the opportunity to diversify the property, bring in businesses that aren't captive and don't hold the city of Evans captive to the volatility of oil and gas and the seasonality and issues with weather of just agriculture. We see an opportunity to bring other businesses in and have a better, well-balanced footprint here in city of Evans and northern Colorado as a whole. And we believe that the rezoning to I-3 further allows us to improve the attractiveness of the property and also increase the value proposition to prospective businesses and tenants on site that can also make use of the rail. And there's only a couple of additional uses of I-3 that we are really focused on, one being recycling. This is the former Nikon Terminal that never came into fruition.
Yeah, so this it was essentially 3 loop tracks. So it would handle 3 unit trains of crude oil. If you look, kind of there's 4 circles on that bottom corner. Those would have been 150,000 barrel crude oil tanks. And this ARB, unfortunately, they were a day late and $1 short for this because crude oil at 2015, it was already starting to go down, so the arbitrage would have never made unit trains work at all. But they had already had an investor go in with them. So yeah, this was, I can't imagine, this would be like a North Dakota facility that you have only seen on TV or read about, and it would have been the largest in Colorado. The nearest one would have been probably Swan Ranch in Cheyenne. So this would have been unbelievably large with large truck traffic. So that's what they spent millions of dollars just in research and engineering to create, only to scrap it. And now it's basically just 3/4 of a loop track with a single track. So it's just multi-commodity facility. There we go. So that's something, this is just an example. This one's actually out of North Dakota, but this is something that it would have looked at. 3 tracks, indoor, transloading everything. So that's what ARB was shooting for, just for examples.
And here's where we're looking at it today, where we're focused more on an industrial park, not necessarily crude by rail or something that is as volatile as the oil and gas world that we live in now. So we have different lot designations, and again, back to what Ann was saying, this is simply a conceptual layout. Our idea here is we don't necessarily know exactly what the individual lots will entail. Most of the facilities looking at, we have one right now looking at about a 20-acre lot. That would bring a long-term tenant in. This one specifically is dealing in aggregates. That would be at least a 10-year opportunity, bringing in jobs, vocational jobs specifically, manufacturing and things of that nature. So there's some great opportunity there. And the smidge itself is not actually shown. Yes, it's not actually shown here. It's right there?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, right there. That's a smidge. So if you look at the larger property here, that little piece of parcel is what we're talking about today. But it is relevant in the sense that the overall I-3 designation is going to be important for this larger subdivision as well.
And our other customer is right here, and they're in a 10-year triple net lease.
Just bringing in long-term revenues into the city. So here we have the main terminal subdivision. If you saw the earlier pictures, this is what it amounts to today. A lot of the plans that taken place before have not come into fruition. Our goal now is we do see a diversified opportunity here that can bring in a sustainable business model, driving revenue, economic growth, bringing jobs, really supporting the residents and businesses within the city of Evans. And we do believe that to be the case if we can see this vision through. And if you go to the next slide, it breaks apart the specific annexation of this corporate headquarters. So again, we're talking about a 4-acre plot that sits directly adjacent to that larger subdivision, and it's used to manage that entire facility. So that's what we're focused on now, annexing that and then rezoning that to, or not rezoning it, zoning it into an I-3 designation in order for it to then coincide with the rezoning of the larger subdivision. And then I'm going to sum this up really quickly here, but the I-3 designation is going to allow us 3 additional activities primarily. That's going to be recycling, sorting, transferring natural resources, car washouts. We're exclusively leaving out livestock and livestock washouts and junkyards. We do believe that it's going to allow us greater flexibility. This land use will allow greater flexibility. Again, this is simply just for the idea of 3 additional activities. Every time someone comes in, a new Senate comes in, we're going to have an individual site plan done, a detailed analysis. We're going to make sure that we uphold all the development standards. There's going to be an additional process that's coinciding with each of the land uses that are actually proposed. And then overall, the smaller tangential piece will then be effectively consolidated into the whole. So we'll have the entire park here being a part of City of Evans as opposed to it being fragmented the way it stands today. That will allow us greater continuity and uniformity across all of our different activities. And overall, we're going to make sure that everything is addressed in terms of compatibility issue, development standards, building codes with this particular property. And our goal overall is to be a good neighbor and a good resident, good business, and a long-term one going forward. One of the things that we did want to bring up as part of this development plan that we're going to be providing, again, as I said before, the individual lots are going to have site-specific plans, independent impact studies, including traffic studies for each tenant that comes to the site. And just to give you an idea of historically what we've seen, the site never lived up to any of its forecasts, again, because of the nature of the business, the crude by rail business. So if you see these forecasts and what were actually realized, we never exceeded 10% of what was proposed in terms of our traffic count and truck volume. And then just some of the things, just to point to some former issues. We're in the shadow of these former tenants, the former owners, and our predecessors weren't necessarily ones that we want to, the practices and the way of doing business that they had is different from who we are and our values. We do take our neighborhood standards we uphold high standards, and we believe that the neighborhood is very important. We understand we're in a unique situation where we're located in that there's not only surrounding businesses, but there's surrounding homes and residences that we do want to be as aware of and accommodate their needs. Some of the issues that we heard after acquiring the property was pretty disturbing. There was a lot of speeding down the CR 33, the use of Jake brakes at odd hours of the evening, restricted bridge access that could have otherwise rediverted traffic another route, so it's not passing the majority of the neighbors living on CR 33. And what we did come to, we did understand a lot of it was not necessarily even trucks from our property. We did an actual traffic impact study recently out of 50 trucks. Ours represented only 5 during certain times of the day. So there has been ongoing issues with some of our neighbors, and we're working with the city and our neighbors to make sure that that's properly just addressed to the right businesses. And we're doing what we can to help being a good advocate for our neighborhood, because we do consider ourselves to be a neighbor now. And because of that constructed dialogue that we had recently, and thanks to the city manager, the city planner, and their work in just vocalizing a lot of the concerns that the neighbors have had, the city of Evans is now exploring options to put up signage for speeding, for speed limits, and then also for potentially the use of Jake brakes if that's an opportunity. The restricted bridge access, the city did a test, determined that they can remove the sign for the restricted bridge access. So there's a potential now to explore different routes and rediverting the truck traffic around if that's possible. And we did have a storage issue on site that the neighbors pointed out. We didn't even realize that it was something that needed to be addressed in the site plan, and now we do. So we are making sure that that storage is removed. There were portalet storage from oil and gas customers. These were clean units. We had them on site, and now we're going to be moving them off, now understanding that we're going to need a designated storage area, which we'll be working in a master site plan. So we're doing what we can to be a good neighbor and to be a good resident here, a business within the city of Evans, and we're hoping that the neighbors can also see that as us now being a supporting advocate for them and their needs. And then, well, that's basically summing it up anyway. Kevin, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I appreciate everyone's time and energy on this project. I know it does take the city of Evans further south than some may like, but I think this is a good addition to already. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm sure we will have some questions for you in just a moment, but this is a public hearing, so we'll get to you guys in just a second. Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in support of this issue?
I don't know if it's support.
The next one would be non-supportive.
Okay.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak in support of this issue? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Please step up to the podium and state your name and address, sir. Thank you for being here.
My name's Pat Oshesky. I live at 23151 County Road 33, right across the street from them. I don't necessarily have a problem with what they want to do over there. My problem is with the past two businesses that have been there, that have made you guys all kind of promises. Never lived up to any of them. The road was supposed to be paved by this month. Start construction on improving the road, paving the road, doing all that stuff. Never done. That's our biggest gripe. Like any other developer, you make them bring in the infrastructure before they start selling off lots. The road, I mean, not so much the road. The road is horrible. It is better. The contractor that they're using now is doing a great job on it. The old contractor that the city used to make, the old company used, was horrible. He didn't know how to put a crown on the road. The road was always mushy, full of holes. The new contractor's doing a good job. Scott with the city, I have to give him kudos. Every time I call Scott, he gets somebody out there to take care of the road right away. So he does a great job. But our problem is all these other promises have been made. They do what they want to do. 5 years later, we can't make a go of it. We're out of here. So now a new company comes in. Like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with what they want to do. Just make them put their money where their mouth is. That's all we ask for. The water coming down our road, they'll tell you is an 8-inch main fed by a 3-inch main. So there's no fire hydrants on that road. There's an acid company over there now. What do we do if there's a fire out there? I was told by the city fire chief, I guess, you better hope the wind's blowing to the east, not to the west. The prevailing winds go to the east. We're frustrated with the city. We've asked the police department to send policemen out to patrol the road once in a while. I don't have the officers to send out there. We've asked for signs to be put up. Sounds like now they're going to put up signs. I don't know how a bridge that's got a busted off corner of the bridge could be deemed a full capacity bridge now when the past two city engineers deemed it not a structurally sound bridge and decreased the weight of the bridge. But now the new engineers have somebody that studied the bridge and said it's fine with a quarter of the bridge corner missing. So I don't understand that. When the past two engineers, the county engineer said it wasn't safe. But now all of a sudden some company comes and says, oh, it's safe. So that's our frustration with it all. We're just frustrated with it. That, you know, the company that's Envirotech, they fly down that road. If you would just send an officer out there, he's going to make you guys a plenty of money. Those trucks leave there at about 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock. I guarantee you he can write speeding tickets to every one of them. Some of them are doing 60 miles an hour by the time they hit my house, which is less than 200 yards from their yard. So that's how fast they fly down that road. I understand in the evening, they want to get back. They want to go home like the rest of us. But if my dog ran out in the street, he wouldn't have a chance. Those trucks are flying down that road. The old sandbox trucks that used to load sand out of ARB, they would fly down the road. We would always call the city and ask for help, and nobody would ever help us. The old city engineers called us the redheaded stepchildren because we happen to just be out there and the city of Evans forgets about us. Yeah, I know I don't live in the city of Evans, but I just ask for your help. I moved there for peace and quiet. I love the area. I love the view I have. No, I don't like necessarily what's going on across the road. And if they want to bring all this new buildings, development in, just make them put their money where their mouth is. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Is there anyone, excuse me, in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Seeing none, does the applicant want to come back up and have any rebuttal? Please, thank you.
I definitely understand what you're saying. I know we talked about this before, and we do want to do this. As we are going through each of these individual site plans, we're going to do a traffic impact study. Right now, the amount of business that Mountain Tracks is bringing in doesn't come close to even justify, 5 trucks a day. What we're working with the city on is potentially looking at what responsibilities Envirotech has too to that road. If Envirotech is using the majority of that road, I really do think that they should help pay for that road. If we were able to afford that right now, I guarantee you we would put that money out there, but we need to bring in some business and then grow and invest in this infrastructure as we go along. So we're going to do our best to make sure that the infrastructure is always accommodating whatever growth level we're at, whatever level of activity exists on site. We will always make sure that that infrastructure is sufficing for those purposes. We have to do that for the business itself, for our customers as well, and for our neighbors and for the city. So we are working with some folks in the city, and I know the city is looking at Envirotech and their responsibility as well. So every time there is a new tenant that comes to the site or customer, we're going to be working with the city hand in hand to see what the potential impact could be and forecast when we want to start making what improvements to stay ahead of that growth.
Thank you. Questions from the council to either the applicant or the city staff?
Yes, I have a question. So if they were annexed into the city, would they be having to pay impact fees?
Mayor Pro Tem, yes, they would, for all the building, all the development that occurs. If I may add, just again for context, tonight, the issue in front of us is annexation and zoning. All of the issues related to traffic and site design and use are all the next steps that would come forward, with many of those steps coming back to council. Many of the issues would also be addressed in a development agreement, should the council approve these first two steps tonight.
So my question, I think, is kind of on the verge of future discussions, and then tonight for information, talking about services to the annex sites. Are the annex sites going to be on North Weld water, the water from that we're processing? What about the sewer lines too? I'm looking at services here, servicing the annexation property.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. To answer your question, the site is supplied by Central Weld Water, and it is a 8-inch line in County Road 33, but it's fed by a 3-inch line, so it is limited in its volume, and there's probably some potential pressure issues. So as the development occurs, we would be working with Central Weld Water to upgrade the system that feeds their primary system. So somewhere back to the south, where the 3-inch line comes into the 8, we would be working with Central Weld to have that line upsized in order to provide sufficient water to the site.
Is that a city expense?
No, that would be at a development expense.
Okay, and what about sewer? Are they going to be all on septic?
At this point in time, they would all be on septic because we can't get them to the wastewater treatment plant for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Likely, any development agreement would require that a property would join and pay the cost to join up with city wastewater services once that is available.
Yeah, and I think the rest of my questions would be more appropriate at the next hearings. So thank you.
Other questions of the applicant or of city staff?
I have none.
Councilmember Neal?
Comments.
Okay, perfect, thank you. If there are no other questions, I will close the public hearing. Council discussion, Councilmember Neal.
Pat, I stood right where you were at 16 years ago and expressed some of the same concerns you had about traffic and the lack of the ability of the city of Evans to take care of that road. And you are incorrect in assuming that the road was supposed to be paved this year, because it was supposed to have been paved in 2004, and the city was bragging that they had a $50,000 grant from the federal government. Of course, that was contingent upon the ethanol plant being built and the rest of the funds for the road coming from that. And as we all know, it was to be financed by New Frontier Bank, which the feds shut down for fraud. We'll have more later.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, council discussion?
So I'm looking at this as majority of their property, over 95% of it is already annexed into the city. We're talking about a small acre or 4-acre property that's outside of the city, which houses their main headquarters. To me, I mean, I understand concerns of, the citizens that live in that area and understand their frustrations and all that stuff. To me, it would make sense to annex them into the city so they have all of their properties in the city and not have to deal with the county on one hand, the city on the other hand for all their different needs. Understanding all of that, I would be in favor of the annexation of that, parcel of property to bring all of their property into the city. That would help them, deal with issues with the city and not multiple groups.
And I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. I think there are some things in the future that we'll be looking at, such as the roads and some of the infrastructure. But as far as the 3.86 acres to be annexed into the city of Evans, I am all in favor of it.
I also echo the sentiments, annexing the smidge. But I do agree. I think, at a later time, we definitely will address any concerns from any residents or any neighbors with any infrastructure or other needs that we need to just look into. But for now, yes, I'm in favor of doing that.
Well, I just want to say, whereas I agree with making their property whole, I'm with the long-standing residents that are in the belief that we shouldn't be south of the river anyway, just because of the services that we cannot provide. So I appreciate everything that this company is bringing to the table. However, I'm going to be on the no side of this.
Can I add?
Sure.
I think for the city of Evans, the reason why I do like what the company is doing, because we need to diversify our industry here within Evans, and having you, there a part of the city and be able to give that opportunity for our residents, not only adding jobs, considering that 94% of our residents actually commute out for jobs, and being able to bring in jobs and having our residents actually acquire jobs within the city would be definitely a huge help. It's just, in essence, a creation of jobs and the potential of jobs would be definitely advantageous for our city. That's all I had.
Thank you. Any other discussion? There's no other discussion. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance 722-20 as proposed to annex certain territory comprised of 3.86 acres into the city of Evans to concurrently zone the property I-3 with restrictions on certain uses.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 722-20 as proposed to annex certain territory comprised of 3.86 acres into the city of Evans to concurrently zone the property I-3 with restrictions on certain uses. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Okay.
Motion passes. Item C, public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 721-20, resolution number 17-2020, approving a change of zone from I-2 to I-3 for mountain tracks and industrial park located at 7300 47th Avenue, first reading. I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So far this evening, we've been focusing on the annexation and zoning for the small, approximately 4-acre parcel called the Smidge. This item shifts our focus to the large part of the property. It's already in the city of Evans to align the zoning with the zoning just assigned to the Smidge property. And for the staff presentation, I will turn it over to our Community Development Director, Ann Bess Johnson.
Good evening again. Again, this one is for the larger parcel. So as we know, you just recommended approval for the annexation and the change of zone for this smaller parcel to match the larger. The process flow for standard change of zone not associated with an annexation, lots of pre-application meetings have been held. We review processing standards, the design criteria, review criteria of the particular change of zone application. Then the application is submitted. We review it to determine, is it complete? Does it meet the standards required of the code in order to have that application be processed? We provide public notice that there is a change of zone request that has been made, and we invite people to come on in and take a look at the land use application file. We do send referral responses out to fire, to Weld County, to other individuals that may have input to make into this application. We have a development review team, which is an internal team to review the pros and cons of the application to make sure things are up to standard. With the change of zone, it's a little different because it is essentially a paper process. It is outlining what could happen, but again, those next steps would be those site-specific development plans. Then we draft staff comments and we schedule hearings only after staff views that it's ready to come to public hearing. Public notice is provided. It was provided starting on June 10th and 4 weeks subsequent to that. It was published in the Greeley Tribune, and sign was also posted on a very windy day on June 9th. Public hearings, again, June 23rd for Planning Commission and City Council this evening, as well as on the 21st for the change of zone, because it is an ordinance and it does require two hearings. So again, this parcel is already in the city of Evans. It is currently zoned I-2, and it was zoned in 2004 for the Great Western Ethanol annexation. Now, you've heard the applicant mention in the last hearing that they are restricting their change of zone with I-3. There are 5 additional uses when you consider moving from I-2 to I-3. Those 5 additional uses include an auction yard, the natural resources extraction and treatment, a recycling center, junkyards, and livestock trailer washouts. The applicant is selecting to self-exclude junkyards and livestock trailer washouts. They felt as if those would be the least compatible with the area, and so they self-excluded, saying if awarded this I-3 zone district, they will exclude those additional uses. So they're losing the potential for a commercial residence, but they're gaining auction yard, natural resources extraction and treatment, and recycling center. So there's really just 3 additional uses that they'll be gaining by going from I-2 to I-3. And again, as discussed in the overview presentation, there will be site plans, minor development plans, the subdivision process, a site improvement agreement or the development agreement, as well as potential special use permits that will come for those individual lots before you, as well as the overall master development plan, which is essentially a final plat that will come before you. And then moving to the very last slide, there are 2 existing accesses. One is up towards the north, the other is on that southern arm before it turns into the panhandle. There is a current use occurring on site, and it's just, they're thinking about doing that master development plan for future uses that are within that zone district. The anticipated traffic right now, they did do a revised traffic impact study, and there are passenger vehicles as well as trucks, 9 trucks and 30 passenger vehicles a day at the peak trip. And going to the criteria for approval, again, staff has concluded through review, through conversations with the design review team as well as our referral agencies, that a need does exist for the proposal. The additional 3 land uses in I-3 zone district would help diversify what they could do on the property. One of the neighbors actually does own an auction yard and has already contacted them about some potential storage if this should come to fruition. So there's lots of activity and interest in the property. The proposal is cited for the use. Again, it is a rail-fed facility. Industrial activity it's a good thing to have that rail-fed. The site has already been annexed and zoned into the city of Evans, and with those 3 additional uses, it doesn't create any extra incompatibilities. There was not an error in the original zoning, but that's an or statement. And so the section D is that there have been significant changes to warrant the change. Again, it's the market, diversifying the tenants that can come into this property. It really does open it up for the landowners. That adequate circulation and traffic movement does exist. They'll be designing their final plat to show the internal circulation and then the external traffic circulation. Staff is aware of all of the different annexation agreements and promises that have been made, and we will be working with the applicant through that to develop some triggering points when County Road 33 would need to be paved. Adequate municipal services are available. Right now they are on septics should they need them, and they are on a well on the smidge. No potable water is needed with the existing facility. They are working with the fire protection district regarding fire suppressants, and right now the tenant that is there is a petroleum-based company, and you really need to fight that with foam versus just water. So the environmental impacts can be mitigated. Again, the first annexation and development agreement already addressed those issues, so no new issues are being addressed by this request to change the zone. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The northern portion of this property is already deemed in the vision for heavy industrial uses or industrial uses. The residual portion of the property were deemed in a forecast in the comprehensive plan to be for green industry or other types of industrial uses. So this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's also consistent with the comprehensive plan in diversifying the economic base of the city of Evans. And then the last criteria for approval is adequate waste, sewage disposal, water, schools, parks. All of these other services will be adequately addressed. And again, for the change of zone, it's hard to note what that full impact is going to be until we see those individual site plans. But that is a process that will be, the applicant will get to work with us further on, and they understand needing to pay their own way through development. So that does conclude staff's presentation on the change of zone for the larger parcel that's outlined on blue on this slide. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and again, this does conclude my presentation.
Okay, we'll get to the questions in a minute. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add or present? Okay, thank you. The public hearing, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in support of this issue? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Seeing no opposition, we'll have no rebuttal. Questions of the staff or the applicant?
I just wanted to know, is this in the flood zone?
It is not.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have a question. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and if I'm wrong, please let me know. So let's say I have individual parcels in there that they have tenants. Each of those tenants that come under that parcel have to present a site plan to the city.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark, you're spot on.
Okay.
They would either do a minor development plan, a site plan, or special use permit. They have to subdivide first to legally have those lots, but.
And for those individuals that come onto that, they also have to pay impact fees as well because, okay.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I want to know. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, other questions of staff or the applicant?
I have none.
Seeing there's no other questions, I will close the public hearing. Council discussion?
I'm in favor of the change, and when my questions got clarified, I'm still in favor. I'm glad that they're putting impact fees going to help future development on that road, that site, and help, that development that, residents in the area have concerns about.
I'm also very much in favor of this. I'll be voting yes.
I'm also in favor, and I do also agree that the fact that, the specific parcels will also be paid impact fees will assist with any of the infrastructure changes that are needed within the area. I'm in favor.
Councilmember Neal, Councilmember Mortensen?
I have some other comments, but I'm not sure where to put them in, whether it's appropriate to put them in here now or to wait until public comment, or audience participation.
Do they have to do with the change of zoning?
It has to do with the history of this.
Okay, I understand. I see what you're saying, Fred. Up to you. Okay, it's up to you.
Okay. Okay, in 2004, Harold Reesburg became mayor with intentions of extending Evans' western boundary down 37th Street to I-25. Johnson and Greeley had something to say about that. So the first annexation that came up was the annexation south of the river for the ethanol plant, which had been previously turned down by Kersey, Fort Lupton, Johnstown, and they came to Evans to start this project. The people that came to protest this annexation were mostly from LaSalle. Lost it. But at the October 19th, 2004 meeting, there were sorry. One, two, three. 8 people from LaSalle who spoke against this annexation. One person was represented by Don Calkins of a law firm out of Denver, and the John Schaefer from Evans spoke against it, and I spoke against it, and that was it. I see no person from the east side of Evans that spoke against it, and at the Planning and Zoning Commission, when this came up again, there were, again, 7 people from LaSalle that spoke against it, 3 people from Evans, Debbie Lambert, myself, and Paul Primer. That's it for people. Now, the people that were pushing this annexation, the mayor was one of 7 mayors, one who served twice from the east side of Evans, and since Eugene Alpin, the mayor from 72 to 1980, and I don't see how the East Siders are being underrepresented in the dealings of this city, as stated by, and not wanting to annex land south of the river. And that concludes what I have to say about this.
Thank you, Councilmember Neal. Any other comments?
I have.
If there are no other comments, we will separate these into two separate motions. So I'd entertain a motion for ordinance number 721-20.
I move to approve ordinance number 721-20 as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 721-20 as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
I move to approve resolution number 17-2020 as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 17-2020 as proposed with the conditions of approval and development standards. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
I didn't get a chance to comment on this last thing, and the reason why I'm voting yes is not because of the annexation, but his property is already annexed in, and now I'm voting on whether or not to allow them to change. So that's why I voted yes in this situation.
Can I not give you a chance? I thought I said at the end.
I
Is there any
think we
other?
heard the speech and then moved on.
I apologize for
Oh,
that.
that's fine. You're fine. Thank you. I just wanted to explain why I was.
Okay.
Yeah, what he- thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item D, consideration of approval of the site improvements agreement for Ziggy's Coffee Shop, and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a site improvement agreement for Ziggy's Coffee Shop, which is in the works for the property just at the intersection of 37th Street, 35th Avenue, southeast, just to the east of Walgreens. And I'll turn over to Ann Bess Johnson for a presentation.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and members of City Council. So this is, something exciting and new happening in Evans. This is for the Ziggy's Coffee Shop. Staff has worked with the legal staff and the applicant to prepare a site improvements agreement. Because it is a smaller development, we're doing the site improvements agreement versus a development agreement. It's kind of like a development agreement light. It still has a standard warranty of 115%, holding that 15% after release. A letter of credit has been provided. The developer's obligations within that $40-some thousand letter of credit includes stormwater management, water and wastewater connections, access improvements, and as is standard with every development agreement in the city of Evans at this point in time, landscaping, maintenance, and the irrigation system as well. So I believe the applicants represent the future landowner and franchise owner is here. She can address any questions that you may have, but again, staff has worked with the Ziggy's owner as well as legal staff in developing this site improvement agreement. And that concludes presentation.
Thank you. Questions of staff or the applicant?
I have none.
When is proposed groundbreaking on this?
We can ask the landowner, but we've been pushing for this week.
She has a shovel now.
I wish I could say that. We have to get full government approval before we can close on the property. So once we close on the property, then we will start groundbreaking as soon as possible. The contractor that we're using, he's already built the last 15 Ziggy's around northern Colorado. So he's very proficient at what he's doing. So I think it'll take about 3.5, 4 months to build. But he wants to get going as soon as possible. He would like to start on the 15th of July if possible. But we'll see if we can close that quickly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or for the applicant while we have her?
No question.
I have none.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments?
I just want to say thank you for choosing Evans to bring your business to. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to the partnership and working with you guys, and hope you have a very successful business there, and look forward to coming over to your shop.
Yes, wonderful. I appreciate that. Hopefully I'll see all of you.
I echo that too. Thank you for choosing us, and I'm excited to see, you know, that area developed and seeing your coffee shop there too. So it's nice because we're going to actually have like a coffee shop in that vicinity because there's not. So thank you for choosing us.
To bring the community, there's a lot of homes around there and so forth. There will be an area where you can walk up. It's not just a drive-through, a small walk-up area. So hopefully, you know, families can stop by, kids after school, that sort of thing, can swing by as well to make it a great, great opportunity for the community around that location.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks for coming to Evans, and I just want to congratulate you on the successful business you own. So thank you for considering us and coming here. We hope to see you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Are there any other comments? Not, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve the site improvements agreement for Ziggy's Coffee Shop and authorize the mayor to sign the site improvements agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the site improvements agreement for Ziggy's Coffee Shop and authorize the mayor to sign the site improvements agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item F, consideration of an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with Weld County for the 23rd Avenue Arterial Construction Project. And we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, as the council's aware, the city committed to constructing 23rd Avenue from its current southern terminus at 37th Street, south to Prairie View Drive in 2020, which is this year, which you'll be seeing hopefully a contract for construction here in the next couple weeks, at your next meeting or the following one. That project this year will be for just 2 lanes, one north, one south, between 37th and Prairie View. As you know, this project, the need for this project to happen right now came out of the development of the Mission Springs community, which is just to the west of the 23rd Avenue right-of-way alignment. We are partnering with the developer for the completion of the 2-lane road this year. Right-of-way there, as you know, abuts Weld County, unincorporated Weld County to the east. So the city's on the west, the county's on the east. At the time we talked about 23rd Avenue, at the time we planned it, we have been designing it for an ultimate 4-lane arterial roadway that would have 2 lanes each way, appropriate medians, sidewalks, curbs, gutter on both sides. That would be a full arterial standard. About that time that we said, well, we can commit to just the 2 lanes right now for 2020. Mayor Rudy, Weld County Commissioner Barbara Kirkmeyer have been kind of talking about some collaboration that could occur between the city and the county that might get that road built out to the full arterial standard much faster than if the city had to take time, save its money to build it out to that 4-lane standard. With that concept, city staff, along with the mayor, approached the Board of County Commissioners more formally. The county commissioners held a work session and at that time agreed in principle to very much support that collaboration where the city and the county would build out the 2-lane road that we're building now to 4 lanes, and that would take place likely in 2023 or 2024 after the city could accumulate some more of its own funding and significant utility work could be accomplished. To that end, the county pledged at that time and has followed through with this IGA contributing $2 million to the ultimate project. So the project, we think now as designed with all costs will likely cost $4.5 to $5 million, and I think are are very grateful to have the county's participation to the tune of $2 million of that total amount. I should mention there's vision here also. One of the purposes for doing this project will be to open up that corridor for development, for, of course, additional traffic convenience from that area of town, and even Highway 85 coming up to the 23rd Avenue corridor. The IGA that you have in front of you tonight also contemplates using Urban Renewal Authority through the Evans Redevelopment Agency to make some of that development happen. The city is agreeing here to collaboratively work with the county to start the process to annex the parcels adjacent to the 23rd Avenue alignment within 6 months, and then simultaneously start looking at and exploring the opportunity for another Evans Redevelopment Agency project area that could potentially generate funding to help further development along that corridor in that future redevelopment project area. The revenue generated there would come both to the city and back to the county for either use to further development, or in the county's case, to help them recover their costs for their contribution to the project. So I think I've covered the basics here. I should mention that in this agreement, this is a city project. The city would be managing all aspects of the project. The county's participation is really limited to just their financial contribution of the $2 million. With that concludes staff remarks. We do have the IGA for your consideration tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Questions of staff?
I have none.
Jim, this is a little bit off of what we're doing tonight, but have we had any progress with XL on getting the power lines underground?
Not on the whole alignment there, where I know our city engineer has been very closely working with Excel to move their utilities. Just a couple of the poles that are needed to be moved for this year's 23rd Avenue project. The discussion of the ultimate location of the utilities as we move toward that widening to 4 lanes is underway. We're talking about the best time to do it, the most cost-effective way. There are lots of considerations regarding cost to underground, cost to move. We're going to have to balance the portion of those costs that would be the city's into the rest of the project and the rest of our arterial plan, frankly. So we'll have more on that for council. It's going to take some time to get all of that work done, but the discussions are underway.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Just to be clear, the 2 lanes will be going from 37th to 42nd
Yes,
this year.
this year. You'll be seeing that contract in the next 2 meetings.
Okay.
But you're on the record.
It's on the record,
It's
Jim.
on the record this year.
37th Street to 42nd this year. This is 2020.
Correct.
Unfortunately, still.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
I have none.
I have none.
I have none. I'd just like to say real quick, I was working with the county commissioners. I do want to give them a shout out here. That is $2 million they gave us. When I was talking with Commissioner Kirkmeyer, that they weren't even going to be looking at for another 15 to 20 years to doing anything on that side of their side of the project. So they really sped that up for us, and I think it's a great project. I'm looking forward to it.
I do want to add, though, something. Thank you for also brokering that and going out there and speaking to the commissioners and assisting the city in getting this taken care of and acquiring the $2 billion. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Well County IGA for 37th Street widening project and authorize the mayor's signature on the grant agreement. Am I on the right one?
No, I think you're on the wrong one.
I'm sorry. I'm like, there was like silence, so I'm like, that is not good. I am sorry. Please scratch that. I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County IGA for the 23rd Avenue Arterial construction project and authorize the mayor's signature on the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County for the 23rd Avenue Arterial Construction Project and authorize the mayor's signature on the agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G, consideration of IGA with Weld County for funding the widening of 37th Street between 35th Avenue and 47th Avenue. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more good collaboration with Weld County. As the council knows, the city has also been awarded a grant for the widening of 37th Street between 35th Avenue and 47th Avenue. That grant is for just over $1.1 million, and that would be in the fiscal year 2022-23 year. So that project is slated for a couple years from now, and I think based on subsequent conversations with the city council, that project, as you know, will likely be broken into two different project years. But the grant was awarded for the entire section from 35th to 47th, and that's going to be fine with the North Front Range MPO. It's going to work, but for this purpose, the grant is for that entire section, and therefore the IGA with the county is for that entire section. The county was a big help, frankly, in getting that grant. The MPO and Federal Highway Administration processes really look to intergovernmental coordination, cooperation on these kinds of projects. And the county's amount of $24,000 here is 2% of the city's total plan contribution, but that's the amount that's required for the grant. So that is the basis of the IGA before you this evening, and this would simply implement that IGA so that we'll have that funding when it's needed for the project. That concludes our remarks.
Thank you, Jim. Questions or comments of staff? Other questions or comments?
Yeah, what's the intersection on 47th and 37th going to look like for right now?
37th and 47th? Yeah, that's your question, Councilmember. I'm clarifying.
Yeah, because this is from the road widening on 37th Street from 35th Avenue to 47th.
47, correct.
So at one point in time, we were talking about a roundabout and everything. With the street widening project, what's that intersection going to look like? I mean, is it?
After the widening is complete, Councilmember Spear, latest direction from council based on work session direction was to move forward with a roundabout design. And at this point, that project would likely happen in the year following this widening project.
Okay, so we're going to widen it to 47th and just narrow it up then and
Temporarily.
temporarily? Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
I have none.
Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll do that.
Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry. I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County IGA for the 37th widening project and authorize the mayor's signature on the grant agreement.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County for the 37th Street widening project and authorize the mayor's signature on the grant agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes. Item H, consideration of IGA with Weld County for the Transportation Master Plan. Hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My remarks are almost identical to the last item. More thanks from a staff standpoint, and I hope from a council standpoint, for collaboration with Weld County. As you know, the transportation component of the city's master plan is critical. It's probably the largest component that will require the most collaboration with neighbors, stakeholder input. So that can be a significant expense to do it correctly. I think our colleagues at Weld County see that the value of that project for Evans. This is an anticipated total cost of the project of $168,000. We were able to secure through the North Front Range MPO. Got to give some credit to Mayor Pro Tem Clark for his work on all of these. And a grant of $150,000, which reduces the city's expense for this project to just $15,000. And that goes with an IGA, or participation from Weld County, of $3,000. So once again, intergovernmental collaboration with Weld County and future with our neighbors has helped us to leverage our resources to really get great work done for Evans. So, following that summary, Mayor, this is an IGA with Weld County for the Transportation Master Plan that would secure that all-important $3,000 to get us $150,000 from the MPO.
Sounds like a good deal to me. Questions or comments of staff?
Any grants is good grants.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Anyone else? Councilmember Neal?
Yes, I'm glad to see that the City of Evans staff and the mayor and the mayor pro temp are being able to get together with Weld County, and this hasn't always been the case in the past on being able to get these grants and get things done at considerable savings to the residents of Evans. And I want to thank all of you for this, because it hasn't always been that way in the past.
Thank you, Councilmember. If I may, Mayor, I don't often do it, but I do want to just highlight that you've seen our Community Development Director, Ann Bess Johnson's work throughout the agenda on important projects, the annexation work tonight, but also she's driving these IGAs and this collaboration with the county and the master planning project that's underway. So I do want to give her appropriate credit for this project and all that she's working on.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
There are no other questions or comments. I'd entertain a motion.
I just want to add that I think, I'm glad that we're getting this grant, and thank you for, staff and everyone that assisted with this. Transportation is definitely crucial. And the City of Evans especially, we definitely need to kind of, get that going here to allow access for everyone. And just thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County IGA for the Transportation Master Plan and authorize the mayor's signature on the grant agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Weld County for the Transportation Master Plan and authorize the mayor's signature on the grant agreement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item I, consideration of resolution number 19-2020, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Colorado Department of Transportation regarding funding for the update to the City of Evans Multimodal Transportation Master Plan. And we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. And with respect to Ann, I'm going to keep going with these and move us through. This is also an IGA related to a large grant, the $150,000 piece of the project that we just spoke about, the Transportation Master Plan. And this is the CDOT component. Kudos to CDOT. Appreciate their help. CDOT also expressed how pleased they were that Evans is moving forward with a transportation master plan. So with that, Mayor, I will conclude my remarks. This is an IGA with CDOT for their participation along with us in this project for $150,000.
Thank you, Jim. Questions or comments of staff? There are no questions or comments. I'd entertain a motion.
Well, not for staff, but I just.
Oh, sure.
A comment.
No comment.
Again, just kind of reiterating what I mentioned, I think this is very important and crucial considering that, again, within the city, we don't have, our mass transportation stops at a certain point, and the simple fact that we are really looking into our transportation master plan, it allows just for people to have better access to resources, access within and outside of the city. So I am definitely grateful for this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 19-2020, approving the substantially, I don't know why I'm thinking substantially. Okay, I'm going to repeat. I move to adopt resolution number 19-2020, approving the substantially complete IGA with the Colorado Department of Transportation regarding funding to update the multimodal transportation master plan. Further, I move that the mayor is authorized to sign the agreement and the city attorney is authorized to approve minor non-substantive changes required prior to execution by CDOT.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 19-2020, approving the substantially complete IGA with the Colorado Department of Transportation regarding funding for the updated multimodal transportation master plan. Further, I move that the mayor is authorized to sign the agreement and the city attorney is authorized to approve minor non-substantive changes required prior to execution by CDOT. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item J, public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 725-20, an ordinance amending the 2020 budget. I will open the public hearing and hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the routine responsibilities of the city council is to keep the city's budget current, and that entails considering revisions to the budget, periodically throughout the year. At your June 16th meeting, council heard a work session on the budget, the recommended revisions, and spent a significant time on each one of those. As council may recall, most of these are rolling funds forward from one year to the next for capital projects that are either not planned to be completed in 1 year, in this case 2019, or have minor changes from 1 year to the next. There were a few requests for additional things that we've become aware of in other funds. I'll just point out from my standpoint that what you have before you is a very austere or very limited general fund request given the budget circumstances that we're in, and most of the activity is in the other funds that have non-general funds, non-tax dollar funds that have separate other funds that can be used for many of the capital projects that you see. With that, I'll ask our Finance Director, Jackie Trout, to provide a brief recap of the budget revision.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Rudy, members of City Council. Just for the record, I'll go through some of the larger items that were included in the budget revision for the record, and also will highlight the items that have not been preliminarily approved by council. I won't say those again. The general fund, as Jim mentioned, just has a few items this year, some carry forward of construction costs for the extension of 23rd Avenue that we just talked about, as well as the comprehensive master plan and the transportation master plan. Have a few items requesting usage of restricted revenue, as you recall, for improving traffic signals, our ticketing system, and police training costs. So our security surcharge and traffic calming surcharges funds that are housed in the general fund are being requested to fund those items. Lastly, in the general fund, we also have an item to clean up natural vegetation on the Arrowhead site, open space site recently acquired. The street impact fund had a few items carry forward for completion of traffic signal at 35th Avenue and 34th Street. Again, a component of the 23rd extension project. will be spent out of the street impact fund. And then you'll hear a few times throughout these request lists, a few items to be reimbursed to the Peakview Metro District for some additional capacity improvements they're doing with their project as well. So there is a component of that in our street impact fund. In our park impact fund, just 2 items. Again, the allotment to purchase that open space adjacent to the Arrowhead property, as well as a component of the Tract O property purchase that was completed would also be coming from the park impact fund. Conservation Trust Fund has a resurfacing of tennis courts at Village Park and some additional costs for the Arrowhead open space. So recurring themes there. A few carry forward items in our CIP Streets Fund, projects such as completion of the access control at 31st Street and Highway 85, 35th Avenue widening, as well as work to be done on 37th Street widening and 47th Street widening. CIP Parks Fund has completion and monitoring items at Riverside Park that we're carrying forward to this year. 2 items in our CIP Food Tax Fund to complete the bridge replacement at County Road 396, and a portion of the access control at 31st Street and Highway 85 will be funded out of there. Moving lastly on to our enterprise funds, mostly carry forward projects here. Everything in our water fund from Neville's Crossing non-potable direct supply project, the Tuscany non-potable irrigation system, Evans ditch measurement, and ditch condition survey and repair costs, a lot of work there, as well as the water fund's portion of utility improvements along 37th Street and the 17th Avenue water line replacement. A couple new items in the water fund, some remote water meters that will allow for remote reading and shut off, a portion to be reimbursed to Peakview Metro District for their additional capacity in the water system, and an anticipated first payment for the Willowbrook non-potable system if that were to be approved for purchase. Moving into the wastewater fund, a few carry forward items to complete construction on Ashcroft Draw aerial crossing, the wastewater utility improvements along 37th Street, a wastewater dewatering project, and to continue sewer line maintenance, all of that to be carried forward. A couple of new items in the wastewater fund that we haven't preliminarily approved, a design plant for decommissioning of the old lagoon, and also does have some grant revenue associated with that. And again, a portion of Peakview Metro District reimbursement for the wastewater system. One new item in the wastewater fund is about $350,000 to fund a Vapex ozone odor control system. So that's an exciting project for wastewater. And then lastly, moving into the storm drainage fund, a lot of carry forward projects as we're working on the east side storm drainage projects as a bundle. There's also funding for a storm truck, the component of utility improvements related to storm on 37th Street, additions at 29th and Anchor Inlet, improvements at the Ridge at Prairie View Outfall, as well as completing improvements in the Ashcroft Heights Channel, along with the east side storm drainage items that we've talked about quite a bit. And then lastly, a component in the storm drainage fund that will pay partially toward the non-potable irrigation system at the Tuscany subdivision. So with that, pretty quickly, some of the major items in this current budget revision. In prior years, we have done quarterly budget revisions. This kind of serves as a first and second quarter as we look at it and anticipate doing one potentially before year end as well, just as needs may arise. But with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jackie. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in support of this issue? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? There will be no rebuttal, so council questions of staff? I have no questions.
I have none.
Councilmember Neal, Councilmember Spear, any questions?
No.
All right, thank you. I'll close the public hearing. Council discussion?
Pretty straightforward. I'm in favor of it.
Exactly what we saw in the work session with a few little additions, so.
I agree. Favor for this.
Any other comments? Councilmember Spear?
No.
Councilmember Neal, I'm just asking because I can't see you.
No.
Okay, thank you. Is there no other discussion? I entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 725-10 on first reading.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 725-20 on first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Jackie. Item K, public hearing, consideration of ordinance number 726-20, an ordinance amending chapter 13.24 to protect the public water system from contaminants or pollutants that could enter the distribution system by backflow. First reading. I will open the public hearing. Hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is the final step in the city's effort to gain compliance with the state's drinking water system requirements. The city had been notified by the CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, that we needed to implement a written backflow prevention and cross-connection control program. The purpose of that is to prevent uncontrolled cross-connections that have the potential to cause health risks in the water system. So this is the kind of culmination of some regulation that was promulgated several years ago. The city had not been fully in compliance with that written backflow prevention program. I want to stress that while it is important that we do gain compliance with the regulation, the city has been enforcing building code requirements for backflow prevention for some time. So all of our commercial structures, all of the same required commercial uses that require backflow prevention devices have been regulated in Evans, and we have been very closely regulating those through the building code. So for almost entirely, they are in place. The challenge and the requirement of the regulation was to go a little farther and make sure that we were reaching out to those commercial customers, that we had them in a database, that we were reaching out to them, and we knew the status of those backflow devices. Additionally, the law requires that we have an ordinance like this in front of you tonight to ensure that those backflow requirements are in our municipal code, as the code has a different enforceability than the building code, and so state law requires this ordinance in addition to the building code requirements. So with the completion of this ordinance, assuming council approves this ordinance, we will be in compliance with this section of state law. I do want to give Scott Sanders some credit to his team. They were notified just several months ago of our need to gain compliance in this area, and they've worked very, very quickly to work with a large number of customers and work with a vendor to build a database that meets the terms of this requirement. That wasn't an easy thing to do. I know Scott is here to help me address any questions that I may not have addressed adequately for council. With that concludes our remarks.
Thank you, Jim. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this issue? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this issue? Seeing none, there would be no rebuttal. Questions of staff from council?
I have no questions.
I have no question.
There are no questions. I'll close the public hearing. Council discussion?
I'm in favor of this. I'm glad we're in compliance now with the state. Yep.
I'm in favor as well.
Councilmember Neal?
Yes, since there were some people that expressed concern when they got the notice of violation, I talked to Jim about making sure that we sent out some information that this has been corrected. So,
Councilmember Neal?
Thank you, Scott, for all your work on this and, doing your part to get this taken care of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Scott, thanks for all your work on it. Thanks for sticking around. At least somebody had to go last tonight, and it was you. Thanks for being here. Are there any other comments? Being none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 726-20 as proposed to amend chapter 13.24 of the Evans Municipal Code to protect the public water system from contaminants or pollutants that could enter the distribution system by backflow.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 726-20 as proposed to amend chapter 13.24 of the Evans Municipal Code to protect the public water system from contaminants or pollutants that could enter the distribution system by backflow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thanks. Item 8, report city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. There's a lot of work happening out there. Just want to give a couple of highlights. The pavement management program is about midway right now. We have completed concrete work for the year. Council will see the asphalt patching work underway now. I know the surface treatment project, so that's the resurfacing work that we have in place will, I believe, be opening bids this week for that, so that will be getting started. The 17th Avenue water line, which has been a major impact but has gone very well for us, is completing its work very soon. We also have the big projects for the year, which are the 47th Avenue utilities project, the 23rd Avenue construction project, and the 37th Avenue overlay project, either back to us. We're getting some favorable bids on the 47th Street utility project, or out to bid or going out to bid, which sets those up for council consideration over your next two meetings. So lots going on in that area. I also just want to mention that as council saw the email today, we will be sad to see our city clerk move on to the next step of her career. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that tonight. There's 2 weeks yet to do that. We'll be able to thank her for her work, and we'll certainly miss her work. I want to mention this tonight because council may have noticed we have a couple other staff here tonight. I want to just mention Crystal Vigil and April Smith have both been here. They are on our staff in other capacities, and they have volunteered to help us backfill and learn some of the duties of the clerk that will help us in the interim as we try to find. We will find our next clerk, but we'll miss Karen. So we'll be able to more formally say goodbye next time, but I want to let council know that there will be continuity, and we have some hardworking folks that are learning that. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Normally, we would just be returning from CML conference last week, and so I would have a legislative update for you. That's been delayed because of all of the COVID events. The main legislation has been COVID-related, and then Senate Bill 217. But in the next couple meetings, I'll also get you an update of other things the legislature has done this year. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Scott. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item? Seeing none, next item is executive session.
I move to go into executive session to receive legal advice from the city attorney and to provide corrections to negotiators in connection with the recent letter of map revision received by the city pursuant to CLS 24-6-402, section 4, subsection B and E.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.